Welcome back to our channel, your ultimate destination for the most gripping updates and deep dives into the dramatic world of daytime television. Today is a thrilling day to unpack the treacherous waters of Los Angeles, where corporate ambition is violently colliding with dark, dangerous secrets. Let us dive right into the explosive new developments that are about to change everything. The corporate walls of Forrester Creations have witnessed countless betrayals, power struggles, and scandalous affairs over the decades, but nothing could have prepared Steffy Forrester Finnegan for the seismic shockwave unleashed by Brooke Logan. The horrifying revelation that Brooke, spurred on by a newly radicalized and vindictive Hope Logan Spencer, is aggressively gunning for the co-CEO position has left Steffy reeling in a vortex of absolute fury and profound isolation. When Ridge Forrester, the man who has historically stood as her ultimate protector and unwavering champion, hesitated and suggested she might need to step down to accommodate his wife, something inside Steffy fractured irreparably. This was not merely a routine business dispute over the Hope for the Future line or a creative disagreement about prioritizing Eric Forster's couture collection. This was a hostile corporate coup, a brutal usurpation orchestrated by the very women Steffy has spent her entire life battling. The sheer audacity of Brooke's power play has stripped Steffy of her executive hubris, replacing her usual confident swagger with a cold, desperate, and terrifying vulnerability. She finds herself standing on the precipice of losing her birthright, the fashion empire she has bled to maintain, and the agonizing realization that her own father might be the one to facilitate her ultimate downfall. The psychological toll is immense, painting Steffy into a dark corner where desperation begins to rapidly eclipse reason and morality. In the suffocating, heavy silence of her sprawling cliffside home, the weight of the impending Logan takeover presses down on Steffy like a physical, crushing force. The dark ocean waves crashing violently against the rocks below perfectly mirror the turbulent, destructive storm churning within her mind. For years, Steffy has prided herself on being the fierce, uncompromising matriarch of the Forrester legacy, a woman who commands respect, dictates industry trends, and demands absolute loyalty from her subordinates. Yet, in the devastating wake of Ridge's bombshell admission, she is entirely, agonizingly alone. The isolation in the Cliff House is deafening. Hope's vindictive triumph and Brooke's premature, smug celebrations echo relentlessly in Steffy's memories, taunting her with the humiliating prospect of an unceremonious demotion. The very idea of Brooke Logan sitting in the CEO chair, dictating the future of her grandfather's company and erasing her hard work, is a reality Steffy simply cannot and will not accept under any circumstances. Her internal monologue is a chaotic, deafening symphony of vengeance, survival, and overwhelming betrayal. She paces the hardwood floors, her mind racing feverishly through every conceivable strategy to thwart the Logan women, but conventional corporate warfare seems woefully inadequate against Brooke's insidious, emotional influence over Ridge. Steffy is a wounded lioness, cornered and bleeding from the betrayal of her own pride, making her dangerously susceptible to the darkest and most sinister of interventions. It is precisely in this moment of profound despair, when Steffy's emotional defenses are completely obliterated, that the unthinkable occurs. From the shadows of Steffy's darkest, most paralyzing nightmares, a figure emerges, stepping into the dim light of the living room with a chillingly serene, knowing smile. Sheila Carter. The very name evokes a visceral, sickening reaction of terror and deep-seated hatred within the Forrester family. Sheila, the woman who has inflicted immeasurable trauma, the monster who once left Steffy and her beloved husband Finn bleeding out in a filthy, dark alley, now stands before her not as an armed assailant, but as a twisted, false guardian angel. The sheer audacity of Sheila's uninvited presence is paralyzing, freezing Steffy in her tracks. For weeks, Sheila has maintained a terrifying, meticulous silence, seemingly focused on her romantic entanglements with Deacon Sharp and her silent, brewing war against Taylor Hayes. But Sheila is an apex predator, and she has smelled the blood in the water from miles away. She has sensed the shifting power dynamics at Forrester Creations and recognized the profound, gaping fracture in Steffi's usually impenetrable armor. Sheila does not approach with a weapon drawn. She approaches with a whisper, presenting herself as the ultimate, albeit horrifying, solution to Steffi's most agonizing and immediate problem. The atmosphere in a room grows thick with a suffocating, toxic tension as Sheila begins to weave her dark, masterfully manipulative web. She speaks with a hypnotic, unsettling calmness, her voice dripping with a sickly sweet empathy that makes Steffi's skin crawl with revulsion. Sheila acknowledges Steffi's immense pain, validating the deep-seated, volcanic rage she feels toward the Logan women. She masterfully articulates the sheer injustice of Brooke's corporate coup, feeding Steffi's bruised ego while simultaneously stoking the raging fires of her hatred. Sheila paints herself as an understanding ally, someone who knows exactly what it feels like to have everything stolen by Brooke Logan. The words are a potent, intoxicating poison, seeping effortlessly into the jagged cracks of Steffi's shattered psyche. Despite the overwhelming, nauseating revulsion Steffi feels toward the psychopathic woman standing before her, a dark, treacherous, and deeply hidden part of her mind cannot help but listen to the melody of revenge. The desperation to save her grandfather's empire is so all-consuming that it momentarily paralyzes her moral compass, anchoring her to the spot as Sheila prepares to unveil her truly sinister proposition. With chilling precision and a terrifying lack of emotion, Sheila outlines her dark promise. She offers to eliminate the Logan nuisance permanently, ensuring that Brooke and Hope are removed from the Forrester chessboard without a single trace ever leading back to Steffi. Sheila does not speak in vague metaphors. Her implication is terrifyingly, brutally clear. She is offering her services as a shadow operative, a willing assassin ready to do the unspeakable to secure Steffi's rightful throne. The proposition is monstrous, a direct, violent violation of every ethical boundary and moral high ground Steffi has ever claimed to uphold. Yet, the delivery is so calculated, so perfectly timed to exploit Steffi's current state of absolute, rock-bottom ruin, that it hangs in the air as a tangible, incredibly seductive temptation. Sheila paints a vivid, intoxicating picture of a future where Forrester Creations is solely under Steffi's absolute command, where the Logan name is nothing more than a fading, irrelevant memory, and where Ridge's loyalty is no longer divided by his obsessive love for Brooke. It is a vision of absolute power, total control, and unbridled vengeance, handed to Steffi on a silver platter by the devil herself. The internal conflict that erupts within Steffi's soul is nothing short of cataclysmic. This is the ultimate, defining test of her character, a brutal battle between the righteous, moral woman she strives to be for her children and the ruthless, power-hungry executive who absolutely refuses to be dethroned by her lifelong rivals. Every rational fiber of her being screams to reject Sheila, to lunge for her phone, to call the police, to banish the monster from her home forever. She vividly remembers the agonizing pain, the blinding terror, the near-fatal gunshot wound that Sheila inflicted upon her and Finn. How can she even entertain a conversation with her would-be murderer? And yet, the alternative surrendering her family's legacy to Brooke Logan, watching Hope smugly parade her unearned victory through the hallowed halls of Forrester Creations, feeling the stinging, enduring pain of her father's ultimate betrayal feels equally unsurvivable. The hatred she harbors for Brooke, cultivated and nurtured over decades of bitter family warfare, suddenly rivals her profound loathing for Sheila. In the twisted, shadowy recesses of her desperate mind, Steffi begins to rationalize the unthinkable. She begins to weigh the cost of her eternal soul against the salvation of her corporate empire, standing precariously on the razor-thin boundary between preserving her humanity and embracing the darkest abyss. As Steffy wavers, the silence in the room stretches into an agonizing eternity. Her silence is not a firm rejection. It is a terrifying, unspoken negotiation. Sheila immediately recognizes this hesitation, her wicked smile widening as she realizes the barbed hook has been set deep within Steffy's pride. She does not push aggressively. She simply allows the crushing weight of the Logan threat to slowly obliterate Steffy's remaining resolve. Steffy's eyes, usually bright with fierce, unwavering determination, are now clouded with a dark, terrifying contemplation. She is no longer just a businesswoman fighting for a prestigious title. She is a desperate queen contemplating a blood pact with a demon to slaughter her rivals. The moral decay is rapid, devastating, and entirely mesmerizing. The very fact that Steffy does not immediately throw Sheila out is a profound testament to how deeply Brooke's hostile coup has damaged her psychological state. The thirst for power, the desperate, clawing need to reclaim her dominance and punish those who dare to challenge her authority, begins to entirely eclipse her fundamental sense of right and wrong. Steffy is slowly, tragically convincing herself that desperate times call for unspeakable measures, and that perhaps aligning with a known killer is the only viable path to survive the ruthless game of thrones at Forster Creations. The tragedy of Steffy's rapid descent into darkness is magnified by the sheer, staggering irony of her situation. She has spent her entire professional and personal life condemning the manipulative tactics of others, constantly positioning herself as the ethical and moral superior to the Logan women. She relentlessly criticized Hope for her perceived weaknesses and blasted Brooke for her endless string of scandals and betrayals. Yet, here she stands, actively contemplating an alliance that makes every single Logan transgression look like innocent child's play. Steffy is actively considering becoming an accomplice to a violent crime, or at the very least, severe criminal sabotage, all in the name of corporate greed and a deeply personal vendetta. The transformation from a proud, albeit stubborn, co-CEO into a vengeful, shadowy conspirator is a shocking evolution that redefines her entire character. It speaks volumes about the corrupting, venomous influence of absolute power and the devastating, mind-altering consequences of profound isolation. When Ridge pulled his support and chose Brooke, he inadvertently pushed his fiercely loyal daughter directly into the waiting arms of the family's greatest, most lethal enemy. Steffy is no longer just fighting for the hope for the future line or Eric's couture. She is fighting for the total, scorched earth annihilation of her enemies, entirely regardless of the blood that will inevitably stain her own hands. Unbeknownst to the two women plotting their dark machinations in the shadows, the sacred sanctuary of the Cliff House is quietly breached. John Finn Finnegan, Steffy's devoted husband and the biological son of the psychopathic monster standing in his living room, returns home from the hospital. Finn has been the unwavering bedrock of Steffy's life, the beacon of pure light that guided her out of her darkest traumas and deepest depressions. He is a man of science and medicine, a dedicated healer whose entire existence is fundamentally dedicated to saving lives and preserving health. As he steps into the entryway, the hushed, conspiratorial tones drifting from the living area catches immediate attention. He approaches cautiously, entirely unprepared for the apocalyptic, reality-shattering tableau that awaits him. When Finn's eyes finally land on the scene, his heart practically stops in his chest. There, standing in the heart of their safe haven, is Sheila Carter, the woman who shot them both, the woman who has terrorized their family relentlessly, the woman who embodies everything evil in their world. But the true horror, the sight that shatters Finn's reality into a million jagged pieces, is not just Sheila's physical presence. It is the posture and demeanor of his wife. Steffy is not screaming for help. She is not fighting back. She is listening intently. She is engaging. The realization hits Finn with the devastating force of a freight train. Steffy is colluding with his psychopathic mother. The air is instantly sucked from the room as Finn makes his presence known, dropping his keys with a loud, echoing clatter. The expression on his face is a harrowing, unforgettable mixture of sheer terror, profound confusion, and devastating, soul-crushing heartbreak. He looks from Sheila's triumphant, wicked smirk to Steffi's guilt-ridden, wide-eyed panic. The silence that follows is explosive, heavy with the weight of 1,000 shattered promises. Finn's brilliant mind struggles violently to process the incomprehensible betrayal unfolding right before his eyes. This is the woman he loves with every fiber of his being, the mother of his beloved child, the fierce protector who aggressively demanded that Sheila be excised from their lives at all costs, even threatening their marriage over it in the past. To find her secretly negotiating with the very devil she swore to destroy is a psychological blow from which Finn knows he cannot easily recover. His voice trembles, barely above a hoarse whisper, yet it carries the crushing weight of 1,000 agonizing accusations. He demands an immediate explanation, but deep down in his gut, he already knows that no justification, no corporate excuse, could ever possibly excuse what he has just walked in on. The very foundation of their marriage, built on mutual trust, unconditional love, and a shared, bloody trauma inflicted by Sheila, begins to crumble violently beneath his feet. Steffi's reaction is a frantic, desperate, and ultimately pathetic scramble to salvage the unsalvageable. The dark, seductive spell woven by Sheila is instantly, violently broken by the agonizing, pure disappointment radiating from Finn's eyes. Steffi stammers, her voice cracking painfully as she tries to explain the unexplainable to the man she loves. She attempts to articulate the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of the Logan threat, the devastating, soul-crushing betrayal by Ridge, the absolute, blinding desperation that drove her to even entertain Sheila's presence for a fraction of a second. But her words sound incredibly hollow, pathetic, and deeply corrupted by the darkness she just embraced. How does one possibly justify a tactical pact with a murderer to a man who took a bullet to the chest from that very murderer? Steffi's frantic attempts to rationalize her actions only serve to further horrify and alienate Finn. He sees the dark, venomous ambition that has taken root in his wife's soul, the terrifying, boundless length she is willing to go to maintain her iron grip on Forrester creations. For the first time in their entire relationship, Finn looks at Steffi and does not see the brave, beautiful, heroic woman he married. He sees a terrifying stranger, a woman so utterly consumed by vengeance and power that she would willingly sell her soul to the devil. Sheila, ever the master manipulator and opportunist, watches the marital implosion with a sickening, twisted sense of satisfaction. She recognizes that Finn's unexpected discovery has forced Steffi's hand prematurely, but it has also driven a massive, potentially irreparable wedge between the husband and wife. Sheila offers a mockingly sympathetic, entirely fake apology before slowly slipping back into the shadows, leaving the shattered couple to navigate the smoking wreckage of their trust alone. The room, now devoid of the immediate physical threat of Sheila, is filled with an even more suffocating, emotional danger. Finn's anger finally erupts, a rare, terrifying, and thunderous display of fury from the usually gentle and patient doctor. He cannot comprehend how Steffi could betray their shared trauma, how she could invite that monster into the very home where their innocent children sleep. He accuses her of losing her humanity, of allowing her toxic, obsessive hatred for Brooke Logan to turn her into the very thing she despises most in the world. Finn's words are sharp, precise, and devastatingly accurate, cutting effortlessly through Steffi's defensive corporate armor and exposing the ugly, festering, rotting wound of her unchecked ambition. Steffi, pushed to the absolute psychological brink, lashes out in a storm of defensive, misguided rage. She is a woman drowning in her own pride, And rather than accepting the lifeline Finn is desperately trying to offer, she attacks him for not understanding the massive stakes of her world. She screams about her legacy, about the years of blood, sweat, and tears she has poured into Forrester Creations, only to have it snatched away by a manipulative Logan who uses her father as a pawn. She demands Finn's unwavering loyalty, arguing that she is doing whatever it takes to protect their family's future, their wealth, and their rightful place in the world. But Finn absolutely refuses to be drawn into her twisted, corrupted logic. He draws a hard, immovable moral line in the sand. He tells her, with heartbreaking clarity, that a legacy built on the blood and sinister machinations of Sheila Carter is a legacy he wants absolutely no part of. The ideological and moral chasm between them yawns incredibly wide, seemingly impossible to bridge. Steffy is now fighting a brutal war on two entirely different fronts. A ruthless corporate battle against Brooke for the soul of Forrester Creations, and a deeply personal, agonizing battle for the very survival of her marriage. And in this tragic, defining moment, she realizes she is rapidly losing both. The psychological devastation of this confrontation cannot possibly be overstated. Steffy is now completely, utterly, and terrifyingly alone. By choosing to even entertain the darkness, she has alienated the one person who loved her unconditionally and purely. Finn's horror is a harsh, unforgiving mirror reflecting the monstrous nature of her recent choices, forcing Steffy to confront the terrifying, undeniable reality of what she is rapidly becoming. Yet, the tragic, twisted irony is that this profound isolation only deepens her reliance on the dark, treacherous path she has begun to tread. With her father's ultimate betrayal, Brooke's impending, smug ascension to power, and now Finn's profound, heartbreaking rejection, Steffy feels she has absolutely nothing left to lose. The moral constraints that once governed her actions are snapping one by one, like frayed ropes in a hurricane. The desperation that brought Sheila to her door has now mutated into a cold, hardened, and lethal resolve. If she is to be painted as the villain by her husband, if she is to lose her family's support and her father's love, then she will ensure that the Logans pay the ultimate, devastating price for her suffering. The descent into darkness is complete. Steffy Forrester Finnegan has fully embraced the shadows. As the long, agonizing night wears on, the Cliff House stands as a silent, mournful monument to a completely shattered family. Finn, unable to remain in the same room, or perhaps even the same house, as the woman who plotted with his psychopathic mother, retreats, leaving Steffy alone with her dark, swirling thoughts. The silence returns, but it is no longer the silence of contemplation or fear. It is the heavy, ominous silence of a looming, catastrophic war. Steffy stares out at the dark, churning ocean, her heart hardened into an unbreakable, lethal weapon. The alliance with Sheila Carter, once a horrifying, unimaginable impossibility, now feels like a terrifying, absolute inevitability. She knows the massive risks involved. She knows that Sheila is a dangerous wild card, an unpredictable, violent force that could easily turn against her at any moment. But the intoxicating, overwhelming promise of absolute victory over Brooke and hope completely overrides her fear and her morality. Steffy is preparing to cross the Rubicon, to unleash a level of devastation upon the Logan family that Los Angeles has never, ever seen. The corporate boardroom of Forrester Creations is no longer just a place of high fashion and business. It is the epicenter of a deadly, high-stakes war where all morality has been discarded in favor of absolute, unyielding power. The impending, violent collision between these powerful women promises to alter the landscape of the Forrester and Logan dynasties forever. Brooke Logan, emboldened by hope and blinded by the intoxicating prospect of reclaiming her corporate dominance, has absolutely no idea of the monstrous, lethal forces she has inadvertently awakened. She believes she is fighting a standard, albeit aggressive, corporate battle against a stubborn, entitled executive who refuses to share power. She does not realize that she has pushed Steffy into a corner so dark and so desperate that the normal rules of engagement no longer apply. Hope, prematurely celebrating her mother's potential victory and the imminent revival of her stalled fashion line, is equally oblivious to the deadly crosshairs now resting squarely upon them. The Logan women are marching confidently and smugly toward the throne, completely unaware that the current queen is preparing to burn the entire castle to the ground, and everyone in it, rather than surrender her crown. The dramatic irony is palpable, layering every single interaction at Forrester Creations with an undercurrent of lethal, suffocating tension. Furthermore, the devastating ripple effects of Steffy's dark choice will undoubtedly spread far beyond the executive suites of the fashion house. The massive fracture in her marriage to Finn is a ticking time bomb waiting to decimate their lives. Finn, now burdened with the horrifying, crushing knowledge of his wife's collusion with Sheila, is placed in an agonizing, impossible moral dilemma of his own. Does he expose Steffy to the authorities or the family to save the Logans, thereby destroying his own family, breaking his vows, and potentially sending the mother of his children to prison? Or does he remain silent, swallowing his morals and becoming complicit in whatever unspeakable horrors Sheila unleashes upon Brooke and Hope? Finn's internal conflict mirrors Steffy's original dilemma, but while Steffy ultimately chose power and revenge, Finn is paralyzed by his pure love and his medical duty. His sacred oath to do no harm is violently, irreparably at odds with his marital vows to protect his wife. The emotional torment Finn must endure as he helplessly watches the woman he loves transform into a ruthless, vengeful conspirator will undoubtedly serve as one of the most heartbreaking, gripping emotional arcs in this unfolding saga. Ultimately, this dark, twisting storyline transcends the typical, everyday soap opera tropes of stolen fashion designs and petty boardroom bickering. It is a profound, incredibly dark exploration of character corruption, the intoxicating, blinding allure of absolute power, and the devastating, far-reaching consequences of revenge. Steffy Forrester Finnegan, long celebrated by fans and family alike as the strong, independent, and moral heroine, is being systematically deconstructed before our very eyes. Her terrifying journey into the darkness, guided by the sinister, blood-stained hand of Sheila Carter, is a tragic testament to the extreme lengths a person will go when they feel their entire identity and legacy are being stolen from them. As the battle lines are permanently drawn and the shadows lengthen ominously over Los Angeles, one thing is absolutely certain. The war for Forrester Creations will not be won with beautiful sketches or impressive sales numbers. It will be won in the shadows with dark secrets, vicious sabotage, and a terrifying, unholy alliance that threatens to destroy everyone involved. The stage is